All right, this is the last section on the review of the economy. And this is the types of economic systems that exist today. So far we've seen the theories of capitalism and communism, socialism. Now we're going to see a little bit more how they are today. So an economic system is the way a society organizes its economy, right? And the economy we know is how the resources are distributed. So an economic system is the way a society organizes the distribution of its resources. You have different types. You have a socialist economy that's planned. The state controls the majority of the factors of productions and how the economy should work, right? So the big ones in history have been communist China, Cuba, and the USSR, right? This was defeated in the Cold War, right? Broke up as democracy and capitalism moved in. China has maintained miraculously a communist sort of repressive government, but has liberalized its economy so that it's become a more capitalist economy. And Cuba maintains some sort of socialism, but has opened up its markets incredibly over the past few generations as well. So just to sort of go deeper into what a socialist economy is, right? And some of them call themselves communists, let's remember, but it's really socialism. The means of production are owned and managed by the state. Private ownership of the means of production is not allowed. Economic activities are planned for the benefit of society as a whole by a central planning authority. So it's like the Ministry of Economy, right? How the resources are distributed is completely planned by the government. Individuals in socialist economies give up their economic freedom in exchange for more security from the state, which has to provide food, water, housing, and a job to each citizen. Does it mean this is always a voluntary exchange? No, this is not a choice, right? Most socialist economies they go hand in hand with dictators, unfortunately, right? All citizens live equally well in a socialist economy if there is no corruption. However, socialist economies often become very corrupt. If you think about it, this makes sense. The nature of the socialist economy is that it's run by the government, and governments are very, very often corrupt as much as they possibly can be. Well, it makes sense that if they're completely involved in the economy, there could be complete corruption, right? Some examples are Cuba, North Korea, and Venezuela. We're not going to go too far into the data of each one, but just so you kind of get an idea. And then we look at the capitalist system, also called the market economy. And this is businesses and consumers control the economy with limited involvement by the state. So this is the other end of the system, right? Where you have a more capitalist, more freedom-oriented economy. So again, this values freedom over equality, whereas socialism values equality over freedom. And you can measure how capitalist a country is by scoring, basically giving them a numerical value on how free their economy is, how little government is involved in the economy. So the freer your economy, the more capitalist you are, the higher your number here. So for example, we have Hong Kong, Singapore, New Zealand, Switzerland, Australia, Canada, Bahrain, Mauritius, Finland, and Chile. Okay, that's sort of the top 9 here. So this is where you can kind of do whatever you want in the economy, and the government doesn't tell you how much you have to pay your workers. It doesn't control if you own too much of one sector, like can sometimes happen here. It doesn't control how you treat your workers, right? What kind of benefits they have, right? That's generally the kind of thing that changes. And then you have the mixed economy, where the state takes action that affects the economy. Examples of action that government can take to regulate the economy are having a social security system to cover maternity leave, sick leave, unemployment benefits, and retirement. So maternity leave is when you, like me now, you're off to have a baby, right? Sick leave is when you become ill and you can't work, but you get paid anyway. Unemployment benefits, when you lose your job and the government pays you. And retirement is, when you're finished working at 65, 67, whatever it's going to be. They give you back some of the money you've paid into the social security system, right? So you can live, right? They charge taxes on imported goods from foreign countries to help keep their economy safer, right? They negotiate between labor unions and employers. And sometimes they own some industries like Renfe, AVE, public schools. In the past, Telefonica, right? Countries are always moving along a spectrum of the mixed economy, meaning that there's always a fluctuation of more or less state influence in the economy. An example is the liberalization of the electricity market in Spain in 1997. So I hope you read this carefully, but it basically tells a story about how it used to be a public industry, and then the government basically sold it off to create private owners, right? Moving a step toward capitalism, right? So get the details and read it carefully. All right, an economic intervention. So this is where the economy can intervene. This is what governments do in a mixed economic system. They intervene in the economy, and that's called an economic intervention, right? It's any action taken by a government or an international institution in a market economy or in a market-based mixed economy in an effort to impact the economy. So this goes beyond the basic regulation of fraud and enforcement of contracts and provision of public goods. So it's anything that the government or something like the IMF, the European Union, the World Bank, any of those supranational organizations, but usually it's your own government. Anything that they do to affect the economy is called an economic intervention. So it can include something like if they want to help the economy, they want to stimulate it, so they want people to buy more things, well, they can lower taxes. And then goods are cheaper, right? If they lower the value-added tax, the IVA, right, the VAT, then everything, if they lowered it from 21 to 10%, everything would be cheaper and people would buy more. That's one way. They can force businesses to raise wages, right, to help stimulate the economy. So when people make more money, they spend more. That's one thing they do. They can give subsidies. We'll talk about that in a second, right? And they can protect you from foreign competition by raising import tariffs, right? If somebody wants, this is like what we talked about with mercantilism. If they want to protect the Spanish shoe industry, well, they might raise import tariffs on shoes coming in from Italy, for example. All right. Economic interventions can be aimed at a variety of political or economic objectives, such as promoting economic growth, increasing employment, raising wages, raising or reducing prices, promoting equality, managing the money supply and interest rates, increasing profits, or addressing market failures. So it's used to do all kinds of things, right? Usually we think of an intervention as like when there's a crisis and the government has to come in. For example, how they intervened in the banking industry in Spain. We think of this like chaotic thing, but it really happens all the time, right? When they give what subsidies, which in this case of colegios concertados, we call them conciertos, right, where they get money from the states to operate. So they're basically private schools, but what happens is the state pays for most of it and the children pay very little. Well, why do they do that? So that they don't have to provide public schools for all children in Spain, because that's a big expense, and so that all children in Spain can have a chance to get a quality education, right? So there's different reasons that a government might intervene in the economy. Some examples are, number one, subsidies. A subsidy is money that the state gives to certain private industries. This money is usually given because the industry would not be viable without it. Okay, that is to say, all the private businesses involved in an industry would go bankrupt. Okay, so one of the big ones is agricultural subsidies. Why? Because agriculture is a very unstable industry, right? You can have a frost, you can have a blight, you can have all kinds of things that can destroy the farmer's way of living for 1 year, for 5 years, for whatever, right? So it's to keep people from falling into destitution, for example, and it's to keep the food supply up and healthy and have people able to pay for it. So it's sort of to keep our economy stable as well. And another one is a stimulus package, for example. A stimulus package is a group of economic measures put together by the government to stimulate a floundering economy. The objective of a stimulus package is to reinvigorate the economy and prevent or reverse a recession by boosting employment and spending. So a stimulus package is many measures. Two of the biggest measures that are frequently used are tax breaks and spending projects. Okay, so a tax break is when the government tells you that you don't have to pay taxes on certain goods or even sends you a check in the mail on that comes from taxes that you have paid, giving you money back and telling you to spend it, right? When the 2007 crisis hit, President Obama, for example, had checks mailed to everyone. I remember I got a check for, I don't know, $400, $500 based on money I had paid into the tax system that year, right? All they said was spend this money because we're trying to reinvigorate the economy, right? So that's one way to do it. Another way is simply to lower the taxes that you would pay on certain goods, like I said before, from 21% to 10%. And then you have spending projects. This is where the government says, hey, we're in a recession and there's a lot of people out of work and we wanted to make a bridge, like the big one they just made connecting Cadiz to the mainland. It's going to cost millions of euro, but we need to reinvigorate the economy anyway, so now is a good time. So what they do is they hire a lot of people, give a lot of people work, and they make the bridge, right? What does this do? It gives people jobs and allows them to spend more money, buying more things, right? It will hopefully reinvigorate the economy and get it going so that later they don't have to do these spending projects anymore, and the economy will sort of naturally pick up. That's the idea, okay? All right, those are the last questions, and I hope this was a helpful review for you.